reputation, credibility, soul. I think this clickbaiting might be getting a little bit out of hand. I get in the world that we live in, it's all about trying to attract people's attention, and clickbaity titles and clickbaity thumbnails are going to draw more attention, but it's getting a little bit excessive. So the other day, Nikon made an announcement confirming the development of a new flagship Z9 camera. And the specifications that they confirmed of it were, 1, what it's going to look like from the front, and number 2, that it's going to support 8K video recording. And as a side note from that, means that the resolution of the sensor is going to be somewhere north of 40 megapixels, but they didn't give us any more information than that. Now, there was rumors of Z9 specifications published months ago now, which said 45 megapixel sensor shooting 20 frames a second and generally having better performance than the D6. So we have confirmation from Nikon that a Z9 is in the works. The very limited specs that they've given us so far do sort of fall in line with what the rumored specs were. So, you know, those rumored specs are a fairly good foundation to build off of what we can expect from the finished released article. So we can kind of make some fairly educated guesses, perhaps with just a pinch of salt, as to how the Z9 might well compare up to the likes of the Canon R5 or the Sony A9 II or the new Sony A1. There or thereabouts. And I have no objections with that, I do that all the time. However, a few days prior to that Nikon announcement, there was an article posted on Canon Rumors entitled, "Here are some crazy Canon R1 specifications." Now, I think it's safe to assume that they were less Canon R1 specifications and more an April Fool's joke that got published a few weeks too soon. 85 megapixel sensor, being able to shoot up to 40 frames a second with a global shutter, quad pixel autofocus, ISO up to 1.6 million, and both a rear screen and electronic viewfinder with resolutions over 9 megapixels and refresh rates of 120 Hz. All for only $8,500. And my arse plays the banjo. Now, the article even rated it as CR0, which is to them a joke, and they even highlighted that the only reason that they were really posting it was because they had pretty much sod all else to put, and it was a bit of a giggle. So it's kind of obvious that these aren't actually specs being leaked from a reliable source about an up-and-coming Canon R1, and more like what a 5-year-old kid come up with when told what would make a brilliant camera. Now, a camera with these sorts of specifications will be released one day. However, by that point, I imagine chickens will have risen up and taken over the Earth, humanity will have emigrated to Mars, and I will be either in a padded box or in a padded room. I'm joking, of course. I'm not going in a padded box. But the point is, those specs are clearly not what the R1 is going to be. It's somebody's fantasy wish list of an ideal camera. We don't even have confirmation yet from Canon that they're developing an R1. It's a pretty safe assumption that they are going to be, but nothing concrete. No leaked images, no even remotely accurate sort of specifications as to what we can expect. So we know absolutely nothing of what the R1 is going to feature like or what it's going to look like. And yet some people have seemingly taken these R1 specifications as bloody gospel that this is what the camera is going to be like. And not only that, they are now comparing the fantasy R1 specifications to the rumoured Z9 specifications. So people are doing genuine comparisons and conclusions as to which is going to be better between something that we've only seen at face value, that we know a few certain things about, but most of it is all speculation and interpretation, versus something that we've never actually seen. We don't even know if it really exists. And everything that we have seen of it so far is purely fabricated information. So basically, people might as well be asking, which would win in a fight, a black hole or a leprechaun? Now, like I said, comparing the Z9, which, all right, we know exists, or we know is going to exist because Nikon have confirmed it, but more importantly, the spec sheet that we've got of it actually looks something like you would expect the spec sheet of such a camera to be, and comparing it up to stuff that is already on the market, measurable. So it gives people a frame of reference. Makes perfect sense. But to compare up specs that we're sort of sure is going to be somewhere along those lines to a camera that's been dreamt up by someone on an acid trip and is never going to exist, at least in most people's lifetimes, is just pointless. I've no doubt there will be an R1 from Canon at some point, no questions asked. I'm pretty sure it's already well in development, has been going on for some time. Even if it hadn't, the release of the Sony A1 and now the announcement of the Z9 being developed, even if it's not called the R1, they definitely would now be working on a really high-end flagship pro-level camera with a ridiculously high shooting speed. But there is no way that they are going to be dropping all those specs that have just been announced. We might have one of those things in a camera that is otherwise spec'd fairly similar to the competition, but there is absolutely no way that such a huge jump is going to come from one camera. Not going to happen. To get to the specs being mentioned in that Canon Rumors post is going to take several generations of a lot of tweaking and fine-tuning and slowly building up to it. They're not going to jump from what the Canon R5 was released as to what is now being speculated. That is like going from having an airship to the moon landing in one go. Z9 specifications, I think, are pretty solid, reliable. It's going to be somewhere around about there, which that would put the camera, I think, somewhere in between the A1 and the A9 II. It's higher resolution than the A9 II, but it's not as fast as the A1, so it's going to kind of fit somewhere in between there. I think it will be enough to keep a lot of Nikon DSLR shooters happy and maybe get them transitioning to mirrorless, which is also why I think that Nikon went with a development announcement rather than waiting a few months and then announcing the official camera, because there will be a lot of people who have seen the likes of the A1 announcement now and are thinking, that looks very appealing, I might make the jump to Sony. If they make the jump to Sony within the next couple of months and then Nikon make the announcement of a Z9, it's too late, they're unlikely to switch back. At least now they know Z9's in the works, I'm going to hold off for a couple of months and wait and see what that comes out like. Arguably, to some extent, given Nikon's current situation, it does feel like they're kind of treading water trying to keep up with the competition rather than actually being able to surpass them, but it's better than nothing. Realistically, I think the R1 is more likely going to be a beefed up version of the R5. Probably not much change in resolution, maybe a bump in processing power to get more speed out of a similar resolution, possibly even pushing the video specs even further with higher frame rates in 8K, but that would be a hell of a lot of processing power. But certainly nothing like the fanciful specifications that some people have taken as gospel that that's what it's going to be like. If Canon release an R1 this year with those specifications, I will eat my own shoes. Well, I might get Rusty to eat them for me, but you get what I'm saying. Point is, anyone taking these R1 specifications remotely seriously are either desperate for views or seriously need psychiatric help. But what do you guys think? What do you reckon the specifications of the R1 will be and how will they compare to the A1 or the Z9? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below while you're down there. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, then please consider hitting the like and subscribe button, and then hopefully we'll see you in the next video.